Since we've already linked our stations, the next step is to set up our audio zones and configure the hardware. The first step to doing this is by opening QSYS Administrator, which is part of QSYS Designer. To open the administrator, go to Tools, Show Administrator. We'll start by setting up our PA zones. Select the PA Zones tab. Listed, you'll see 5 zones. Remember, that's how many zones we defined our PA router in the PA Router Properties tab. You can give names to these zones by double-clicking and then editing the name. A zone is a speaker or set of speakers you want your voice to be sent to when you're making a page. In our traction, we have 5 zones that we'd like to define: exterior queue, interior queue, load, ride track, and unload. We're then going to make a tag. A tag is how you address multiple zones at the same time. To make a tag, you just click the plus icon in the tags section here. In our case, we're going to make a tag called all queue and a tag called all zones. Finally, we want to assign tags to the local zones. We're going to assign all queue to the exterior queue and interior queue zones. Then, we'll assign the all zones tag to all 5 of our local zones. Now, if we page to all queue, our voice will be heard in both the interior and exterior queue. If we page to all zones, our voice will be heard everywhere in the attraction. Before we leave QSYS Administrator, let's look at the PA global settings. Here you'll see priority level listings. By default, these 5 priorities are what are available. You can rename them, reorder them, or add and delete them. Then, back in the plugin, you can give each vPage station a priority. This means that if 2 pages started happening simultaneously from 2 different stations to the same audio zone, the paging station set with the higher priority would win out, and you would not hear the page from the station with the lower priority. If both paging stations are set to the same priority and 2 concurrent pages take place, whomever started talking first wins out. Alright, let's exit the administrator. Now that we're back in the plugin, let's finish this lesson by discussing in more detail the hardware configuration section. Here, while connected to the QSYS core, we can now assign our buttons to zones by selecting them from the drop-down menu. You'll see our local zones and zone tags we just made, and the breakaway functions. On the first vPage unit, let's assign button 1 to load, button 2 to ride track, button 3 to the all zones tag. For button 4, let's use the pulse breakaway feature. This breakaway feature is something no other paging system can easily do. We have a breakaway function which can turn a button on the vPage into a trigger. You'll see there are 3 breakaway feature choices. Breakaway toggle turns your button into a toggle. Press the button once to turn it on, press it again to turn it off. This would be useful for something like a mute button. With breakaway momentary, the button status stays active as long as the button is held down. With breakaway pulse, once the button is pressed, it turns to an on state for 500 milliseconds, then turns itself off. This 500 millisecond value can be adjusted in the vPage Paging Station Properties tab. Again, it's labeled as pulse duration. Both breakaway momentary and breakaway pulse would be good for triggering pre-recorded audio cues to play. To trigger an internal audio player to play in the core, we need to break out the button status pin. To do that, go over here in the Properties section and select the button status pin, so we'll have access to it in our design. Then, add an audio player to the design, and select the play trigger so we break that out, and we'll be able to wire them together. To finish, let's set up our second unit. We still need to assign the buttons in vPage Station 2, our unload unit. Button 1, we'll choose Unload. Button 2, Ride Track. Button 3, All Queue. Button 4, All Zones. We also need to assign buttons to the vPage VP16K. Now that the control has been programmed, the last step in setting up our vPages is to route the audio. This will be covered in the next and final episode, the season finale of vPage Setup. Stay tuned.